Hey everybody. I wanted to do a really brief video on this story about the 13-year-old boy who was shot and killed by the cops. Now, several months ago, I did a ton of videos showing different young Latin men, Latin teenagers who were shot and killed by the cops. But of course, those stories didn't make national news. So now this one is making national news, and you got some people on here saying that, oh, now it's happening to Latin people. This has been happening to Latin people. Been. All right, this stuff has been going on for forever. This stuff used to happen back all the way in my father's time when my dad was a little kid. All right, so this is nothing new, and it happened prior to that. All right, so people that want to throw this stuff out like this is all new, BS. I have the videos to prove it that none of this is new. All right, just go look at my archive. It's really sad, all around, because the way the article reads, I'm not going to read the article because it's actually really long, but I will leave it in the description box. But it basically reads that that the boy had a gun in his hand when he got shot, right? So then there's people saying no, that he threw the gun and he didn't have anything in his hand right before he got shot, but the cops are saying otherwise, and that they ended up finding the gun after he got shot, right? So I think to try to cover themselves, they're basically saying that he had a gun in his hand, I guess, in order to feel justified for shooting the kid. But as you can see in the picture that I put in my thumbnail, that was his final hands up. He had nothing in his hands at all. So who's telling the truth? Like, this is an actual video footage right before he got shot. You clearly see that both of his hands are completely empty and they're raised up in the air. So it's not like he was aiming a firearm at anybody, and it's not like he was doing anything to anybody. Now, whether he was doing like shooting at anything or anybody prior to that, we don't know, because supposedly the reason why the cops were called was because they heard gunshots within the area, or so I guess neighbors complained or whatnot about gunshots being shot in the area. And that's why they showed up to the scene. And then it turns out that they found this 13-year-old boy and this 21-year-old man running, and then they started chasing them and yada yada, right? And so supposedly there was casings of the very same gun that the 13-year-old boy had. That they found the same bullet casings, like several blocks prior to to basically where they found the boy and the 21-year-old man. And I'm making that distinction because to me, even though I would still consider 21 years old a kid, legally that is a man. Why a 21-year-old is hanging out with a 13-year-old is beyond me. But unfortunately, that is how that lifestyle is when these young guys get involved in different types of criminal activity. Unfortunately, it starts very young, and sometimes you'll be hearing about 10, 12, 13-year-old little boys associating with 40-something-year-old men that are involved in that type of lifestyle. It's actually pretty sick and disgusting. But that's neither here nor there. There's people, of course, making comments like, why was this kid out by himself at a certain time? But then, according to other stories, it's like this was actually a reasonable time that this happened. So what are you talking about? And of course, the mother makes it seem as though, this kid was just a regular kid and that he wasn't involved in any time. Obviously, the kid must have been involved in something if he did have a gun, period. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that he shot at the cop. I'm not saying that he aimed a gun at the cop, but he did have a gun, unfortunately. So I don't know what that kid was getting himself into. You know what I mean? Prior to, these cops showing up and, what he was doing hanging out with a 21-year-old in the first place. But nonetheless, that's not validating the kid getting shot. I'm not validating it at all. All I am is questioning, why is this kid hanging out with a 20? It's sick. And I do feel for the boy's family. And it's just a really sad situation. And every time I think of like young teenage kids getting shot, I always think, and I said it in one of my other videos when I did the videos of the different Latin men that were shot, and some of them were very young or whatever. I always go back in my mind and I think of, when I was a teenager, and this my high school sweetheart at the time, we were babies, and I remember him telling me about like he was on his way home and he wasn't doing anything. He was just, it was actually after he had seen me that day, and he just went home, and it happened to start turning dark. It was getting dark on the early side. He wasn't running or doing anything or nothing crazy, and I guess the cops were looking for somebody that I guess he resembled him because he was tall, and the cops, they went up on him, and they pulled out their guns, and he got scared and he ran. And I told him, don't you ever run again if that happens to you, because they will shoot you, and you are so lucky that it didn't happen to you. And I'm here talking, this was 20 something years ago. All right. So again, these things are not new. Don't listen to the hype where this stuff is being like the way the media is trying to portray it as this is something new, or like, oh, now it's happening to Latin people. It's been happening to Latin people. Been happening. Even my cat agrees with me. You hear him in the background, he's saying, yeah, it's been happening. That's what the meows mean. Meow means yes. Right, Munchkin? I don't know where you are, but I hear you. Oh, I see you. You're on the steps. Okay. Anyway, I thought that was funny. Anyway, so it's just messed up all around. Hopefully the family gets some sort of redemption for this. I wouldn't even know. Sometimes there's just no words for stuff like that. And it made it seem as though, like, when you watch the footage, I can't play the footage. I will leave the link in the description box to the to the article where you can watch the whole thing from beginning to end. But it's like the cop does sound like he's remorseful for what he did. You know what I mean? But what I would prefer, instead of them like making up the whole idea that they're trying to say that he had the gun in his hand, I would prefer if the cop at least said, I thought he had the gun in his hand. Because if it's clearly showing that he doesn't have anything in his hands, you're really not making yourself look any better right now. It's just like you're going to go by this because you don't want to face any repercussions at all. If he at least said, I thought he had a gun in his hand and I shot. You know what I mean? But he's not doing that. So that makes me really suspect of his motives, especially when he was basically trying to make it seem as though like, he really cared and he couldn't believe that he just shot and killed somebody just with one bullet, right? We'll see what happens as the story unfolds. This is really sad. And like I said, I wanted to keep this brief. But yeah, anyhow, I guess I'll see you guys all in my next one. I have a couple of videos that I want to do, and I'm going to do my best to try to get them done during this weekend. I'm going to try. But anyhow, I'll see you all in my next one. This is, again, not an isolated incident. Take care, everybody. Bye.